want to bring in Tennessee Congressman and member of the Homeland Security and Oversight Committees, Mark Green. And Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for joining us.
Good to see you, Maria.
Your reaction to what you heard from Secretary Pompeo, and then we want to broaden it out and ask you about the happenings in Washington.
Sure. I really appreciate his stand with Iran and, of course, the issues in Libya. I think the Berlin Conference is going to move us down the road there. What he didn't mention, of course, North Korea launching the ballistic missile this morning. I'm sure that'll come out. Hopefully it'll come out. There'll be a question on that. And then this impeachment mess. I mean, his comments recently have been very strong, and I really appreciate his stand there. So we've been talking about that this morning, and we want to get your take in terms of how this progresses, why there hasn't been an overall House vote to actually vote to launch the inquiry, and is this all about just putting on a show, which is what Andrew McCarthy just said when he came on the show. The Democrats just putting on a show to try to delegitimize President Trump. Absolutely, Maria. This is a travesty of democracy. I mean, every single member of that House, the People's House, represents 800,000 people. And when we vote, we're letting the voice of the American people be heard. Yet the tyrannical leader of the House, the Speaker of the House, is not letting us have a voice in this issue. She's just initiating this inquiry, which really isn't official, because we should have the opportunity to vote. The process is we vote, and then the committees go to work forming articles of impeachment and doing their investigation. We're not doing it that way because there are 31 Democrats sitting in seats that Trump won, and they don't want to put those individuals on the hot seat. They're afraid they'll lose those seats, lose control of the House. So she's going about this without letting the people have a voice or a say in it, and that is a threat to democracy. It is insane. It's crazy. I can't believe it's happening. Leader McCarthy has tried multiple times to force a vote, and they keep tabling it so that they don't have to vote. It's terrible. It's egregious. It should not be happening in America.
Congressman Don Peebles. Good morning. Doesn't Congress have more important things to do to move the country forward? Don't Americans have other very pressing issues right now? And are any of those things being addressed in this Congress?
So I'll give you an example. I have a bill that would help rural hospitals. I think everybody knows I'm a physician, I'm a businessman.
Congressman, stay with us for one moment. I'm sorry, we want to get back to Italy because the Secretary just got a question on Ukraine. Let's hear his answer.
Are the accounts that we've all seen of it, including the transcript or partial transcript released by the White House, accurate and complete? And if you were on the call, did you hear anything on that in the conversation that raised a red flag, anything inappropriate, or anything that gave you any concerns? And then secondly, you said last week that you, as far as you knew, everyone in the State Department had acted appropriately in regards to Ukraine, including yourself. And so is that still the case? Is that still your belief? If it is, why object to the demand for deposition from the House committees on the Hill? And then do you have any concerns at all about what the State Department Inspector General is going to be briefing to Hill staffers later today? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt. I'll try to answer questions 4 through 7 first, and then 1 through 3 after that. Back to first principles. The predicate of your final question about objecting to what the folks on Capitol Hill have asked is fundamentally not true. What we objected to was the demands that were put that are deeply violate fundamental principles of separation of powers. They contacted State Department employees directly, told them not to contact legal counsel at the State Department. At least that's been reported to us. They said that the State Department wouldn't be able to be present. There are important constitutional prerogatives that the executive branch has to be present so that we can protect important information. So our partners, countries like Italy, can have confidence that the information that they provide the State Department will continue to be protected. And so the response that I provided to them was one that acknowledged that we will, of course, do our constitutional duty to cooperate with this co-equal branch. But we are going to do so in a way that is consistent with the fundamental values of the American system. And we won't tolerate folks on Capitol Hill, bullying, intimidating State Department employees. That's unacceptable, and it's not something that I'm going to permit to happen. As for was I on the phone call, I was on the phone call. The phone call was in the context of, now I guess I've been the Secretary of State for coming on a year and a half. I know precisely what the American policy is with respect to Ukraine. It's been remarkably consistent, and we will continue to try to drive those set of outcomes. It's what our team, including Ambassador Volker, were focused on, was taking down the threat that Russia poses there in Ukraine. It was about helping the Ukrainians to get graft out and corruption outside of their government, and to help now this new government in the Ukraine build a successful, thriving economy. It's what the State Department officials that I've had the privilege to lead have been engaged in, and it's what we will continue to do, even while all this noise is going on.
Okay. Chris O'Day, National Review.
Thank you both for being here. I'd like to, I guess, address the question to both of you. You can kind of take it in whichever order, whoever wants to kind of go first. Primarily oriented towards, I guess, what is conveniently termed kind of the Belt and Road these days, but on a somewhat broader basis, not just with Huawei. But does the U.S. have any specific plans, in terms of how to counter China's investment in these major critical infrastructure assets? And I ask that here because it seems like there is a very wide degree of those assets that are financed or operated in Italy by Chinese companies, particularly in ports and Vado, obviously in Trieste under the new BRI memorandum that was signed, bridges, roads and highways as well. So it seems like a great deal of Italy's economic infrastructure is kind of moving in the direction of sort of Chinese influence, and the I guess underlying point is those types of things tend to require the Chinese companies to work very closely with Italian government and financial institutions and get more deeply embedded in the way decisions are made and the way budget and resources
Thanks,
are allocated.
Chris.
We are watching the press conference in Rome. We just heard Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said that one of the issues was that the Democrats contacted staffers directly in the State Department and told them, don't hire your own legal counsel. I just want to point out that did not work out well for Carter Page. That's what they did to Carter Page in 2016. They told him, come in, we want to talk to you. Don't have any legal counsel. And then they wiretapped him.
This goes right back to what Andy McCarthy was talking about, though. Again, this is not a formal process. This is a show, and it's a stunt by Congress to use this as a political weapon. We won't tolerate the bullying and intimidation of State Department employees. Congress is a co-equal branch of government, and what they're doing violates the separation of powers, according to the Secretary of State.
Who do these people think they are? Look, the American people need to stand up to this, and it needs to start showing up in the polling. What's going on here is ridiculous. It's horrific. It's anti-American. This is. I can't believe what's going on in Washington, D.C. right now.
It's absolutely extraordinary, and we are talking this morning with Congressman Mark Green. Congressman, your reaction to what you're hearing here, as well as you were in the middle of a thought on Don Peebles' question of doesn't Congress have better things to do? You've got a lot of things hanging in the balance.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Belt and Road issue that they're talking about right now. I mean, there are incredibly complex issues facing America and facing the world, and China's Belt and Road agreement with Italy is very concerning. I'd love to dig into that. But I'll give you another example. I have a bill that would save rural hospitals. It's a 35-mile exclusion and access to critical access dollars. And yet I can't get that bill heard. I even have a Democrat committee chairman who has signed on to co-sponsor the bill. I can't get that bill heard to help rural hospitals in America because the committees are all tied up investigating this president and investigating with no authority from the House itself. So the people of America have no voice. She has shut that down and basically initiated this process on her own as the Speaker of the House. It's unconscionable, and as someone said earlier, un-American.
Congressman, I think the Democrats, though, would argue that something similar, the obstruction approach, was what was confronting Barack Obama. So when Barack Obama was president and Republicans had control of the Congress during his term, there was obstruction as well. Is this the new way politics is done, and we have lost a bipartisanship way of governing? Is this what we can see going forward, or how do the American people get their government to work for them?
You elect Republicans. That's how you do it. Because you look, when we had control of the House, we passed tax reform that has blown this economy up. We passed in the House, at least, health care reform and sent it over to the Senate, and there was a little hiccup over there. But we did things when we had control of the House, and that's what needs to happen. We need to take back control of the House. I mean, Leader McCarthy, I think I was starting this thought when y'all jumped over to Mike's comments. You know, Leader McCarthy has tried multiple times to get a vote on this issue so that the people's voice can be heard in it. Every time they table the motion and there's no vote taken. So it's not the way to do business in a democracy.
So, Mark, this Andy Puzder, and by the way, as being my congressman, I feel free to ask you these questions.
Fire away, Andy.
The impeachment's going to have to be bipartisan. They're going to need the support of some Republicans. Now, the polling showing that Republicans in the general public are very supportive of the president. Are you seeing any weakness in the Republican caucus on the Hill as far as support for the president in this process goes?
No, I've seen. I think our caucus is standing pretty firm together. And I will tell you that in the district, in my district, it's hugely supportive of the president and very, very angry about this process. So both the caucus is standing together, and I think, at least in my district, the folks who support me are 100% behind the president.
Do you think USMCA has any shot of coming to the floor? I mean, is that one of the priorities? Are you going to vote for it if it does, and do you expect it?
Absolutely, I'd vote for it. It's a great deal. Even liberal economists have said that the USMCA would produce 200,000 plus jobs in America. I mean, it is a fantastic agreement for farmers. It even helps union members, people that, you know, typically Republicans, you know, have not reached out to. But I mean, this is a fantastic opportunity, and we have to get it passed. I'd absolutely support it. Do I see it happening? No, I don't have a whole lot of hope that the Democrats are going to do anything but investigate the president. I told the president the other day he needs to go find his lemonade stand permit from when he was 12 years old, because they're coming after that too.
Wow. This is an extraordinary moment in time, Congressman.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is unbelievable, and we'll see how the voters react. I mean, it looks like the president's not having any trouble raising money, but, you know, there's an election next year. We'll see how that plays out. Congressman, good to see you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mark Green joining us there.